How's it going, everyone? It's Lumbity here, and today we are going to be talking about a video game on the Game Boy Advance, and it's a game that I didn't expect to actually be as good as it is, and that game is the Berenstain Bears and the Spooky Old Tree. If you don't know what the Berenstain Bears are, it's basically an old book series, and I believe it also had some like TV movies and stuff like that, and some, I don't know if it had actual TV episodes or if it was actually just like TV, like little movies and stuff, and TV specials and things like that. But either way, it's been around for a very long time, and there's surprisingly a few games that exist for it, and this is one of those games. And it's actually a fun little platformer game. The cool thing about this game is that you control 3 different bears throughout the game, and on the majority of the levels, you actually have to play as each of the bears in the same level and get each bear to the end of that level to pass it. And you have to use each bear to basically help all of them get to the end of the level. One bear has an ability to jump further than the rest, one bear has a rope that they can climb up, the other bear is stronger than the rest and is able to push boxes, and you have to use all of their skills to be able to get all of them to exit the level. And it's a really fun idea, it's a really cool game, and it actually isn't like, it's not hard or anything, but it does have a little bit of challenge to it, and it's pretty fun whenever you're going through all these levels. And all the levels feel very unique to one another, and I really like the feel of this game, and the look of it is pretty good as well. I think the graphics are actually pretty nice in it. There's a few enemies throughout the level, there's even some boss fights. None of them are particularly difficult or anything like that. In fact, I would say that this game is pretty easy, but it's also pretty relaxing. It's not a hard game, but it is a fun game. It's very different from a lot of other games. It has its own feeling to it, and it feels like there's actually quite a bit of effort put into this game. And I was kind of surprised by that, because usually when you see games like this, they're kind of based off of, random books and random TV shows and stuff like that. Usually, you can run into a lot of shovelware, but this feels like there was actually quite a bit of effort put into it, so that was pretty cool, actually, so I was glad to see that. And I like a lot of things about this game. I like the story that it has going on. They go into the forest to go see a spooky old tree, to go see some ghosts, and it turns out that there's basically this weird curse that's on the forest, and they basically have to try and lift that curse. And then they're also trying to get home because they're freaked out of this entire, this entire area. They don't want to be in the forest once they go in there and they see this tree and everything like that. So it's pretty fun. I do like the story quite a bit, and I like everything that goes with it. The game does try to throw some different stuff at you to try and make it so you're not playing the same thing over and over again. It tries to break up the monotony of regular platforming by throwing in just some different styles of levels. So you have the levels, obviously, where all 3 of you are trying to get out of the level, but then you also have some levels where you're only playing as one specific character. You have some levels where you're like jumping off of a platform and you're basically skydiving, trying to avoid different obstacles that are in your way and trying to get to the bottom. So there's some interesting stuff that they throw in there to just try and make this game feel a little bit different. And I liked all of the levels. I think all of the levels were really good, and I think overall it's pretty well designed. I didn't really have any problems with it. This game makes sure that you have plenty of lives. It's constantly giving you lives. You can only have a max number of 9, but if you lose one, you're most likely going to get another life back pretty quickly, because all it takes to get those lives back is just collect a certain amount of items, and there's an abundance of items to collect in this game, so it's really easy to get a life back if you start losing them. And this game also does have a password system. It doesn't use your regular saves, which I prefer having just a regular save over the password system, but it is what it is. It's not a huge deal, but it is something that you may want to keep in mind when picking this game up. I do enjoy this game, though. I think it's a lot of fun, and I picked this game up for like $5 or $6, which is not bad at all for it. It's not a difficult game. It's pretty relaxing. It has really nice graphics, cool level design. I really like the design of the levels. I think they did a really good job making each level feel different from one another and just giving you a cool level to explore each time. So I think that this game is worth picking up if you can find it for $5 or $6. I wouldn't go crazy with it if you see it for like, $15, $20, maybe don't get it then, but if you can find it for like $5 to $10, I think that's a pretty fair deal on it, because this is definitely a underrated game that no one really talks about, and I really wouldn't expect people to talk about because of the fact that it's such an obscure title. You know, it's such an odd thing to have a video game for. But there's more Berenstain video games out there. I have another one on the Game Boy Color and another one on the Sega Genesis that I want to talk about eventually. So we'll get into those videos in a later date, of course. But there's one last thing I want to talk about in this game, and that's the fact that each character also has their own attack ability. So one character who has the long jump ability, she has this basically like gymnastics pole that she uses, and she can use it as a melee weapon to do melee attacks. There's one character that has a slingshot for long range attacks, and then there's another character that can throw stuff for a medium range attack. And that's basically the different abilities that those characters have, other than the abilities I already talked about earlier in the video. So at least they did their best to try to make each character really feel different from one another. You guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe button down below, and I will see you in the next one. You have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.